Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll show you how to craft show notes and descriptions with the help of ChatGPT. I have two options for your podcast descriptions. Option number one is the one that I use most often. And this one just kind of has a teaser of what the podcast covers, the questions that it answers, a little bit about the guest, if there is a guest on the podcast, and then the important timestamps. And then the second version is just the podcast show notes. So you can use this option if you feature guests and want to include detailed show notes on your website along with your audio version. So I'm not sure if you watched a video on how to turn transcript into a blog post. If you are the only speaker in your video, I would use that option along with this template for your podcasting software. Now, if you don't want to turn your podcast into a blog post, if you want to keep the integrity of, say, your guests saying certain things and then you're saying certain things, then I would suggest using the podcast show notes. In that case, you want to use this ChatGPT prompt, all right? And then the last template I have here for you is on how to create YouTube video description with ChatGPT. Now for this lesson, we will want to export a transcript of your video and your podcast, which could be the same thing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna head over to the script and we're going to select the video that we want to create podcast and video description. I'm gonna click on publish, export, and transcript. And because I don't have any speakers besides myself, I don't need the speaker labels. If you're creating detailed show notes, you might want to keep that so that ChatGPT can identify who's saying what. I'm just going to go ahead and click do not include speaker labels and export this file. Now here is our file. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab this prompt right here. We're going to copy the prompt and paste it here, and then we're going to delete this last part and copy and paste our transcript. And then now this message is ready to send. Now as you can see, ChatGPT created this podcast description for you. You can go ahead and copy this. I will just paste it for now here at the bottom so I can show you how to edit this. I usually just highlight it and clear formatting and then add space after paragraph. And then let's see what it actually says here. Wondering how to build an audience that's genuinely interested in your business, ready to buy your products and services. In this episode, we tackle this burning question and provide practical steps to guide you on your journey. Sounds perfect to me. About the guest, I actually did not have a guest, so I can go ahead and delete this. And then in this episode, I like to keep my timestamps very short. So what I will do is, and I actually have this suggested here. So what I will actually do is I will ask ChatGPT to come up with 7 timestamps based on the transcript, and I'll ask him to keep it short. There we go. So now we have these awesome timestamps that we can paste right here instead of these long ones. And then all I need to do is just make sure that the time codes are actually correct, because sometimes they aren't since this is just the transcript. So I can go through the video and make sure that I adjust the timestamps if needed. Because for instance, the timestamp says minute number 7, but the whole video is only not even 6 minutes. So there's definitely a little bit of an error here, but that's because we don't give ChatGPT the audio file, we only give it a transcript. Now, another thing that ChatGPT missed is I asked it to come up with 3 questions that the podcast answers, and it only gave me 1 question. This is fine, but I like to include multiple questions. So what I will do is I'll go back and I'll ask it to come up with 3 questions the podcast answers, and just to make sure it didn't forget what I ask it, which sometimes it does, I'm going to paste the transcript. Here we go. Now we can go ahead and copy these 3 questions and include them here at the beginning. And I'm just gonna, how can you build an audience that is genuinely interested in your business, ready to make purchases? I don't like that. What are the common pitfalls to avoid when starting to build an audience? How can you effectively use storytelling, email lists, and collaboration to expand your reach? Wondering how to build an audience that's genuinely interested in your business and ready to buy your products and services. And then we'll change this. Want to avoid common pitfalls when starting to build an audience for your small business. Pitfalls people fall into. Want to know, learn how to effectively use storytelling to expand your reach. There we go. So now we have 3 different questions that this podcast answers, and we have in this episode, we'll tackle what is the goal of this episode, what are we going to tackle, and then we have our timestamps here and call to action. All right, and ChatGPT even included the call to action to not miss, we'll change this, don't miss my free webinar linked in the description. There we go. And it only took us a couple of minutes. Now, if your podcast and your video are the same thing, identical, you don't have to do anything else. You will just go ahead and paste the same exact description right here. Don't forget to adjust your timestamps to ensure that they're correct. Now you can use this for your podcast as well, but just in case if you wanted to create detailed show notes, you will paste this prompt and then you will replace this with the transcript. And now this, as you can see, is a more detailed version that talks about exactly what you mentioned in this video. So if the first version is more like a teaser, the second version is going to be more detailed show notes that actually explain exactly what was said during the podcast. All right. So I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.